Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
The new year is around the corner, and this is when all of us make resolutions. According to Forbes Health, 40% of people made resolutions oriented towards finances in the last year, and on an average, only a resolution sticks for about 3.5 months. So, how do we make these resolutions and ensure that we stick to them?
So I think financial goals are a little bit trickier because we tend to set goals that can be achieved over a period of years and not within the next year. So from a timeline perspective, you're working on something for a much longer period of time. The second challenge I would think is that it's harder to measure your financial goals simply because it's not like saying I want to be fit and I will go to the gym 5 times a week, right? Because that is very easy to measure. Like you can clearly say whether you're on track or you're not on track. But here there are so many external factors also that are influencing your progress. And the last thing I think would be in terms of results, because how do you actually measure how you're doing? There is a need to come back to the table and look at what you're doing and how much progress you've made and whether you've stuck to the process that you agreed to follow or not. But sometimes you might be ahead, but it won't look like you're ahead, right? So let's say you had a goal to hit a certain corpus number within a certain month, and in that month it so happens that the market corrected. So you might not be at your target number, but if you followed that process, then that's something you should celebrate, but you may not end up celebrating that milestone simply because you're not there. So I think this is where sort of working with an advisor or working with a professional could really help, because they will be able to assess and see whether milestones are whether you're on track to hit your milestones or not. And if you've never worked with an advisor before, you should talk to somebody who has, because you might get some feedback on what realistic timelines are, how they've worked towards their own goals with professional help. And for some of us who don't have that network or don't have that circle or aren't exposed to those people, I think you could look at testimonials and reviews, because a lot of people do share their experiences on working with advisors and achieving their financial goals over a period of time. And that journey is actually very interesting to track and understand.
So, the first thing would be goal setting. So, there are a few different ways in which you can set goals. The first one would be a stretched goal. So, a stretched goal is basically a goal which is very ambitious and aspirational, and usually kind of outside your capacity. This is going to help you push yourself to reach the goals. So, for example, this could be like setting yourself a financial goal of achieving $1 million corpus. And secondly, you have what is called as SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, and time bound and relevant as well. So these are basically broken down into smaller targets which you can set for yourself, and you can measure and see whether you're on track to be able to achieve that. So an example for this would be like planning a vacation in 2024 and breaking that down into what you need to save, which instrument you need to put it towards, and picking your destination and budgeting and seeing how you'd be able to achieve that.
I think that's a great example actually that we can work with, and it reminds me of a tweet that I read from Tim Ferriss, where he talks about categorizing your goals into goals that involve being, having, and doing. So, for example, I want to be a better saver would fall under being, I want to have $1 million would fall under having, or I want to do a vacation abroad would fall under the doing category. And then you have a 6 and 12-month timeline, and within the 6 and 12-month timeline, you're supposed to talk about 3 steps that you can take, and the first step has to be something that you can act on immediately. So let's say we're talking about doing a vacation abroad. You can decide on your destination, or that could be your first step, or you can talk to somebody who's gone abroad to a place that you want to visit and talk to them about their experience. It's a quick call, right? So if you want to be a better saver, then find an accountability partner. Could be your advisor, it could be someone in your circle, it could be another family member. If you want to say get to $1 million, then first have a plan. So these are all I think very easy to action out, and coming back to the drawing board and measuring that on a regular basis could be really helpful.
So now that we have kind of outlined what our goals would be and we know how to set the goals and what actionables need to be done, now is about holding yourself accountable and actually getting to do that. So a lot of times when it comes to resolutions, people tend to incorporate too many changes in their life and have too many resolutions to work on. But ideally, the key to success is ensuring that you don't do more than like 2-3 changes or 2-3 actionables, and you ensure that they don't overwhelm you. Also, it is important to have a streak. So having a calendar and cutting off the days in which you get your tasks done is really important, and it's going to be like a feel good factor for you and help you in keeping that momentum when you feel lazy. But that being said, there are definitely going to be a few bad days, and we will be discussing about how to tackle bad days shortly. But having the discipline, having the routine is what is going to keep you going during bad times.
I think it's really important that we address the bad days, because that helps us prepare for success. The first thing being that obviously our life is going to be split into like good days, bad days, and normal days. The normal days are the ones that we really need to maximize, because they're going to form a majority of our life. And that's why we need to work on keeping the momentum even when it gets boring or a little bit tedious to keep it going. The good days kind of take care of themselves, and you're going to be on top of things anyway. So we need to also address the bad days which are going to come up once in a while. And these are the days that we need to prepare for, because we can prepare for them in advance. For instance, like if you're an investor in the market, a 10% correction is normal, right? So if you know that's going to happen, you can prepare for it so that you optimize your behavior and your actions on the day that it happens. And I read this book called Master of Change, and in that he talks about how you can prepare for bad days with a 4P framework. And the 4P framework is just pause, process, plan, and proceed. So when you're faced with a difficult situation, the first thing we need to do is to pause instead of immediately respond to it. When we pause, we create a gap between our response or our reaction and the situation that's occurring at that time. Once you process what is happening, I think that gives you some space to make better decisions, because if we respond immediately, we respond intuitively to situations, and that may not always be the best outcome. And then once you process, you can actually plan your response better. And this is where planning in advance also helps. So if you know that there are going to be bad days, and if you can sort of forecast and project how that's going to affect you, then I think this is really helpful. And then only do you proceed with action. So if action comes last instead of first, I think the actions that we take could be much better.
So to conclude, the first point would be for you to set your goals, classify them into stretched goals and smart goals. Second would be to have guided timelines and actionables that is going to help you do the actions that's going to help you achieve the goals within the time frames that you have. If you are working with a financial advisor, ensure that you do stick to your goals and what you bring to the table, and also you understand from the advisor in terms of how the market volatility is going to be, what are your target corpuses, what you need to do, what they'll be doing, what is the growth rate that you can assume, and where you will be within those timelines. And lastly would be to prepare for the bad days and follow the 4P framework to ensure that you're able to get through those bad days and able to stick to your plan and help you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching, and we wish you a very happy new year.